أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور قلوبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نوينا التعلم وتعليم وتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والفرد والاستفادة، حث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. عين وشبصات من لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علما لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله. To continue with our class, inshallah, we are on Khuluquna, right? But we are going through a bit on النماذج. النماذج من أدلة أهل السنة والجماعة في بعض المسائل التي تعرضوا لها المبتدعة. Right, so we the last time round we went through the part on the graves, right? So I'm just gonna, I think that today's the last lesson on this book. I want to go back to the original book. Right. So but this is basically taking just a few things that is more prominent in our country or in our context, in our time especially. Not everything is that this book has highlighted or addressed is an issue, right, around the world. Some in some places, yeah, in some places, no. Alhamdulillah, and you'd even be surprised that that's how much is the point here. That you're like, is it a problem? Is this actually a problem? Right? Like I didn't know that kissing the hands of righteous people, scholars, is actually a problem to some people. Allahu A'lam. Like they seem to find a problem with everything. Okay, so the last thing we went through was actually reciting for a disease, and I think we're kind of okay with that, right? I think we've gone through enough proofs. They have like a whole load of proofs, and stories and everything, that prove um of course, the first thing we went through was the permissibility of it, right? And then of course we see when it comes to, and you have to be very clear, right? So when we speak about this, when we discuss something, right? When we discuss something, you have to be very clear, right? The topic of discussion, right? So that you don't confuse one matter with another, and that is the problem with a lot of people. Okay, they're not clear in their discussion, right? So are you discussing permissibility of it? Like, is it permissible to do, right? Or are you discussing, if the reward reaches the deceased? The two separate matters, right? Whether something is permissible to do, right? Or and whether the reward actually reaches the deceased. Right? They are two separate matters, right? So even if, and we mentioned this earlier on, even if it does not reach the deceased, does this render the action impermissible? Does it? It doesn't. It doesn't. Right? Permissibility is one thing, right? And whether or not it reaches is another thing. That's all. Right? That's all. As simple as that. Right? And mashallah, I think if you I don't know if you were to look online and stuff like that, if you were to look online, in social media, you see exactly. I don't know whether I'm going to blame the education system or the entertainment system or something, but human beings don't know how to process a discussion anymore. In our zaman, they can't seem to process a discussion. Like I'm talking about something. I'm talking about something, right? And you're arguing about like something else. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Yeah, and it's one. They're two mutually exclusive events. And I mean, if you go into mathematics, you kind of like, you're very clear. They're two. mutually exclusive events. Like, and you don't, and they don't affect each other. Right? Proving one of it does not, lead to the proving of the other. Right? Subhanallah, or disproving one of it does not lead to the disproving of the other. Subhanallah. It basically goes down to that. I think, like people don't know how to look at matters and break it apart, and then, address it part by part, in a very structured manner, and for it to come to a logical conclusion, about it. Subhanallah. So anyway, we went through the stages, right, of it. This is a bit of recap, okay? We went through the stages of it. We went through first and foremost the permissibility of reading the Quran. Wherever you want to read the Quran, it is permissible. Second thing, the benefit, right? The benefit of reciting Quran, onto the deceased, right? So benefit has two parts again. Can be very clear in your head, right? Benefit has two parts. First and foremost, the Quran benefits in that, right? It causes for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to descend, right, on the place where it is recited, right? That does not mean that I'm saying the reward goes to the deceased. It just means that if I were to recite the Quran here right now in front of you, right, for example, right, or you enter into a place where the Quran is being recited, right, then know for a matter of fact, right, from the proofs from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that that place is blessed. Right? It doesn't, like, for example, if I'm reading Quran right now and you come into my presence and you sit in front of me, and I just saw because I'm reading the Quran, and I just want to just be around someone reading the Quran. Right? It doesn't mean that my reward goes to you, right? My reward goes to me, right? But do you benefit? Do you benefit, right, from me reading the Quran? Yes. You are in an environment where the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends, right? And the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descending means sins are forgiven. You get it? It's the benefit that is undisputable. Is that from the sunnah of the Prophet. It's undisputable. And that is exactly a proof from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So first and foremost, right, they cannot deny that reading the Quran, wherever you want to read, for as long as on your menses, so it's not in a lowly, najis place, for example, like the bathroom, whatever, it's permissible. You can read the Quran wherever you want to read the Quran, right? It's permissible. No one can deny that. No one can argue against that. Secondly, right, is there benefit where, in a place where Quran is recited? Definitely. That is from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that also is indisputable. You cannot argue against that. Right? So what's the problem? The problem is, oh, they comment on the hadith whereby Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when the son of Adam passes away, all of his deeds are cut off except for three. Right? And in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, the three methods, that he a knowledge that he had taught, a beneficial knowledge that he had taught, right, that people benefit from, right? He still gets the reward of that, or wealth that he has spent in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he benefits from, or a child who makes dua for him and he benefits from. It's a hadith, right? Whereby, and they keep using this hadith, right, in to speak against people who recite Quran around the deceased. But we've already proved from the first two matters of the permissibility of reading Quran wherever you are, right? And also of the reading down of Allah's mercy in a place where Quran is recited, right? And that one, this cannot be denied. Halas, that has really, brought forward has brought forward the case, right? So now this third thing. It's a third matter. You get it? You get me, right? So let's look at the hadith, okay? Let me see if I missed out anything first, okay? No. Right. And anyway, okay, so let's look at this third matter, and then I'll talk about some stories that I missed out last night round. Okay. Now, right. So the third hadith, right? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. So they will basically quote these two very famous, I mean, they will quote the people who are against reading Quran for the deceased, you know. There is a story about that is quoted by Sheikh Izzuddin ibn Abd salam. right? That he's one of the great scholars of Islam, right? Especially here, sorry, right? That he used to make the fatwa, right? That the recitation of the Quran, and dhikr after someone's passed away does not reach the deceased, right? And that it just reaches the one who's doing it, right? So after he had passed away, this particular sheikh, it's recorded. Sorry, after he passed away, right? Some of his, companions and his students, I saw him in their dreams. Actually, like a group of them. It was a group of them who saw him in their dreams, right? And they, and they said, you know, and they said to him, like, you used to say that the reward of the Quran and the zikr does not reach the deceased, right? What do you see now, right? And then he said, yeah, I know. I used to say that. I used to say that the reward of Quran, right, and zikr does not reach the deceased, but now I'm in the hereafter, and I see that, and I seen the generosity of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and yes, it does reach. And he said, please recite some Quran for me. The story, anyway, mashallah. But there are many, many examples of these stories. Right? Actually, many, many examples, of people coming to the dreams of other people, and saying to them, could you recite something for me? Could you do something for me? Could you, and they actually, ask, the request, mashallah, and then there's a story here, very popular story here in Tarim, about a man who saw in his dreams, and he was going past a graveyard, right? And then he kind of fell asleep. Then he saw in his dream, he had recited like something Surah Yasin, right? He recited Surah Yasin, right? Onto the graveyard, and then he fell asleep, right? And then he saw in his dream the people of the grave, the deceased people in the grave, right? They were rushing in a field, and they were picking something. They were picking up stuff on the ground. They were picking up stuff, right? And he was wondering what they're doing, right? And then he saw, and then there was a throne, and there was a man who was still on a throne, just relaxing, not doing anything, right? So he went to the guy and he said to the guy, "What is everybody doing?" Right? And he said, "Oh, they are, they are seeing that you recited. The reward is scattered over this grave, right? Over this graveyard, this cemetery, right? And all of the deceased people, they are, rushing to get the reward of what you recited." And then he said to the guy who was relaxing on his throne, he was like, then what about you? Why aren't you rushing to receive the reward of what I just recited? And the guy on the throne says, for me, I have a son. And every single day, the son of mine does one whole khatam for me daily, right? Daily. I have no need for your for your citation. I have a son who does it for me. So the person described the son, of his boy, of this man who had passed away. So when he woke up, he went to look for the son, and he found the son in the marketplace, and the exact description the father gave, right? And when he came, he saw from afar the mouth was always, moving. See, well, he was walking in the marketplace, he had a shop, and he was selling stuff, right? But his mouth was always moving, right? It was always murmuring to himself. So as he came closer, he said he was observing this young man. When there was someone who come and buy something from him, like he would stop his murmuring, he would respond to the person, right? Sell, or he would sell whatever he's selling, right? And then when the person left, he would continue his murmuring, right? And so he came closer, and then he asked the young man. He said, may I ask you, is your name Fulan bin Fulan? He had the name of the person. And he said, yes, it's my name. And he said that, why are you murmuring? Or you're always murmuring. I can hear what you're saying. Why are you murmuring? And the son was like, what I'm murmuring is between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the man said, are you reciting Quran, right, for your father's passed away? Right? And then the son says, how do you know that? How do you know I'm doing Quran? So basically, this young man, he does not say anything in the day except reciting Quran. He has memorized it. He's memorized Quran. So the whole day, from start to end, he begins his Surah Fatiha, Surah Baqarah, all the way down to Surah Nas, right? The entire day, like the entire day. So his mouth is not used on with anything else except Quran. Subhanallah. Right, mashallah. And then the story goes that after some time, the man is to dream again, and he sees the same man who was on the throne. Now he's together with everybody else, picking up stuff on the ground. And he went to the guy and he was like, hey, how come you're picking up stuff on the ground? I thought your son reads for you every single day, the Quran. And he said, yeah, but my son passed away. So no one's doing it for me anymore. Mashallah, which is why like here in Tarim, they have a custom that whenever they do a khatam of the Quran, right, they will intend it for all those people who have been forgotten. Right, there are people, or they have no one to recite stuff for them. To recite Quran or Hadith for them, or or Zikr for them. They will actually do it in intention on all those people who passed away and who have forgotten about them. Mashallah, mashallah. So anyway, this is story that, mashallah. And then many in Tarim you find many, incredibly many stories. Okay, but I want to just address the Quran and Hadith here. So they always, okay, these people who are against this, right? And then as I said, they're just against the ibadah of it. Just against ibadah, whatever it is. Right? Okay, the Quran they always quote is that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. Right, so where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, Surah An-Najm, in verse 39, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, and there's nothing for the human being except what he strove, right? What he strove in. There's a verse in the Quran, nothing for the human being except for what he strove. So you say, okay, see, the Quran says you only get what you strive in. You can't, like, hop on someone else's, deed, and kind of get from it, right? Get or benefit from it. There's one of the stories that whereby there was a mother who saw her daughter being severely punished in the grave. She has so many sins, this girl, right? And she's so severely punished in the grave, right? And then she went to the sheikh, and she woke up from a dream, and she went to the sheikh, and there was basically her daughter passed away, and she didn't want to see her daughter and how her daughter was doing in the grave. So she went to a particular sheikh, and the sheikh gave her a formulation of things to recite, right? Whereby, you'll be able to see in your dreams, right, the deceased. Right. And so she did that, and she saw her daughter in a terrible state, terrible state. So she went to the sheikh again, and she said to the sheikh, "What am I going to do? My daughter's in a terrible state, whatever." And the sheikh taught her certain things to do to recite for her daughter. Inshallah, Allah forgives her. Right. And after some time, she saw her daughter again, and daughter was in the most beautiful state, right, in the grave. And she asked her daughter, "Oh, daughter, what happened?" Right. And she said that, well, a person came by the grave, the graves, a person came by the graves. And he recited, Surah Fatiha onto everybody in the grave. And I received the reward of the dot on the bar of the Bismillah. I received that. And by the reward of the dot on the bar on the Bismillah, Allah forgive me all my sins. Inshallah. I mean, don't confine or limit the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to describe, they're gonna explain this verse. Right, and then comes the other hadith also, right? إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا ثلاث. Right, so when the son of Adam passes away, right, his deeds are all cut off. Right, so here in the hadith it says it's cut off, right? It's cut off, right? Except three, of his own deeds. Like we mentioned, about knowledge that is beneficial that he taught, right? And so for as long as someone's doing it, right, he gets the reward of it, right? And this knowledge is, of course, first and foremost, the religious knowledge, right? Whereby you teach someone Quran, or you teach someone how to pray, or you teach someone, anything that will benefit them in their akhirah. And also it includes teaching someone, dunyawi knowledge, right? For example, you taught someone to cook, right? You taught someone to grow plants. You taught someone to sew their own clothes, that kind of thing. I said it's a forms of beneficial knowledge. So for as long as someone's benefiting, right, from this knowledge, right, you get the reward. And it's from the hadith. So it's from the hadith, right? Or, well spent the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like for example, I wanted a story. There was this one of the scholars, the righteous, he was seen after his death. But all the stories, all yani, yeah, someone can argue, oh, they're all just dreams, they're all just dreams. Then, it is true, it's true. Dreams do not weigh on an argument. Hey, but they're nice to hear. Hey, but basically, yeah, you don't actually take dreams to be an argument. Any so anyway, there's this guy, upon this scholar is alim, right, who was seen after his death. I think one of the great scholars, this great ulama of Islam, forgot what his name right now. um he was seen after his death, and he was asked, and he was like really like a top scholar. He could prove lots of stuff, and he had books and everything, and like so much, that he could that he used to do when he was alive, in service of this ummah and of Islam. And so he was seen after his death, and they asked him, what has Allah done with you? And what has Allah done with you? What's your state right now? And he said, Allah has forgiven me. Allah has forgiven me. And he said, why? What was the deeds? What were the deeds that you did? And they called that earned your forgiveness from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And he said, oh, all the words were scattered, and all all of this argumentation, all these discussions were all gone. And the only thing that benefited us or benefited me in my grave was that there was once I went by a small town, and there was some old woman there, right? And this old woman had asked me to teach them the Fatiha. And I taught them the Fatiha, and that was what saved me. Right? That was what saved me in my grief. And not to mean that all his other deeds were all, irrelevant. No, of course, they were all his good deeds, yes. But comparing all the deeds, the one that was most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was that he taught some old woman in some random town that he passed by the Fatiha. Then he sat down for a while, and he just taught them the Fatiha, and he went on his way. And that right there was the most beloved thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it was the closest to a sincerity, beneficial, teaching someone Fatiha, right? Not hadith, not hadith, story. It's not a hadith, it's a story. Tamam. Um, mashallah, and there are also other scholars, right, that said, one another scholar who was also seen after his dream, and they asked him, what benefit you in your grave? And he said, oh, all of what we used to do, they were like, they were all scattered about. And what really weighed for us, what really benefited us, was a few short raka'ats that we used to do in the night. Like ركيعات كنا نفعلهن في جوف الليل. He said that, he said some ركعات, like some short, small rak'ats we used to do in the depths of the night. That was what benefited us. That, mashallah. So, I mean, subhanallah. I mean, it's mentioning that I was mentioning it because I'm mentioning the story of the Fatiha, right? That what you taught someone, right? That's what going to benefit you in the hereafter. Then, of course, well spent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that continues, right? Sadaqah jariyah. Right? So it's a continuous form of charity, right? Which is, for example, like you build a well, for example, okay, you build a well, and people benefit from this well, for many, 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 many generations to come. Every time someone drinks water from that well, you benefit, right? Building a school, building a masjid, if you can't build an entire masjid, you can contribute to the building of it, to the funding of it, right? So in a sense, which is why Muslims of the past, they always do waqaf, right? They always have waqaf, projects, whereby waqaf meaning they buy something and they dedicate it, right, in the service of Islam forever, right? So it's kept forever, right? In a sense, so the reward comes to them. And the last one is a child, a righteous child, who makes dua for him. All right. So to answer this question, right? So they say, so see, Rasulullah said in his hadith, all the deeds are cut off. All the deeds are cut off, is it right? Okay. So understand, right? That first and foremost, understand discussion, right? Understand discussion. First and foremost, this verse of the Quran, does not deny that he does not benefit from the effort of someone else. Now look at the verse again. So you understand the verse, right? So the verse, right? You don't have a child, then have to do for you lah. I have no children. Right? But I mean, teach enough people or know enough people that people love you, right? Be good to people. People love you. Right? Doesn't mean that it has to be that okay, again, look at discussion, right? Look at discussion. Does it mean it has to be your own flesh and blood to do for you? Meaning what somebody else to ask for you is not counted? No, of course not. Of course not. And the hadith it points towards dua. Not that it has to be your flesh and blood who can dua for you. Then only your flesh and blood dua is counted. Of course not. Right? Anybody's dua wants dua for you. Right? Anybody. Which is why, when you go to the grave, you make a general dua for all there. So you don't know who are the people in the grave, who don't really have any family who's making dua for them. right? So for me, like, personally, when I go to the grave, I will go specifically to one particular cousin of mine who has passed away. Now, I'll go specifically to her grave because she passed away without, she didn't get married, she didn't have children, she didn't, basically, and her family, like all of them have passed away already. Her parents have all passed away. Um, her sisters left, right? So like I would specifically go to her grave, right, and recite for her, right? Because in a sense, there are people who are out there who are like that, right? They don't have anyone, right? And these are the people whom you really want to go to, right? And recite for them, right? If you know people in your family, or just say generally, Ya Allah, in this graveyard, who are the people who are cut off from the people on this earth, right? So I sedekah, or I give the reward of what I recited to all these people who have no one who recites for them. Right. So yeah, no. Right. So basically, the first thing is that look at the verse again, right? That the human being does not have, except what he has striven, right, for in his life, right? So this statement, if you answer the statement correctly, right, it refers to this it refers to the human being and his own deeds. So regards to my own deeds, right, I have what I strove for. Okay, I have what I strove for, and I don't control anyone else's striving, right? But I control my own striving. So I have what I strove for, or what I neglected falls back on me, right? As for the striving of someone else, right? As for the striving of someone else, that person, right? They can do their striving all they want, right? It does not deny that their striving can actually reach me. Okay, the verse does not actually have anywhere in there that denies the striving of other people, right, coming onto my account. It does not deny that. Okay, right. So it just says that for a human being, as long as you're alive, you get whatever you strive for, right? Does not actually address the striving of other people. Doesn't negate it. It does not negate it. Right. So if you need to understand statements correctly, right? And that, inshallah, if somebody else is someone else striving for you, right? Inshallah, it can come on to you. Because there is no negation, right? There was nowhere whereby there's a statement whereby the striving of other people cannot, like, come, onto the account of somebody else. There is no statement like that. There's no statement like that. You just say that your striving is for you. Yes, my striving is for me. Does it say anything about someone else's striving? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You get it? Right? And then I'm going to end the class, inshallah. Like, but I'll finish it with the hadith. So with the hadith, right? Uh, uh, the hadith says that the deeds of a human being is cut off. Yes, it did not say the benefit is cut off. So a human being is cut off from deeds, yes, because he's dead. He's passed away. He's dead. So he is cut off from his own deeds, of course. He's dead. Like, there's nowhere that says that it cannot benefit from the deeds of other people. You see that? Like, it's not in the statement. Like, it's not there. Like, so you can't just, take a statement and then just assume that a negation of in that or that it means a negation of something that's not actually addressed in that statement. So basically, as I mentioned earlier on, it's an understanding of statements, right? People are not understanding statements and they're going into assumption, and thereafter limiting the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So I'll give you an example. Okay, so for example, if there are stories in Tari, mashallah, when people dig the graves, they find of the awliya, of the saints of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They found those who were praying in their graves. They found those who read Quran in their graves. They find those who are, and they're doing ibadah in their graves. Okay, that kind of ibadah that they are doing after death, that does not count for them. It does not actually count, right? So there's something in a hadith that prophets are alive in their graves, they are praying. Those prayers that prophets are doing in their graves, all of them, the rewards not being counted. Because why? As with the hadith in the Quran here, it's only what you strove, right? For what you strove for in this dunya. Right? So once you have passed away, and you're in your grave and you're praying, you're doing Quran, you're doing, stuff in your grave, doesn't count for you. It just occupies your time, yes, in the grave. It gives you tranquility, gives you happiness, gives you peace. There's a benefit there, yes, definitely a benefit. But does a reward come for you? No, there's no reward. If you praying in your own grave, or you fast, or or you Of course you're fasting, you're not eating there. Allahu Alam, maybe you're eating. But you reading Quran in your grave. And I know some of the teachers here, they will say that if you memorize Quran, you intend to memorize the Quran, you intend very strongly to be recent day of judgment, you do also memorize Quran. Right? So inshallah, when you pass away, you can continue the Quran memorization, in your grave. Right. So, but the scholars will say, yeah, you can, but the reward doesn't count for you. Right? Because of course it's not the same, someone who strove very hard to memorize Quran in the dunya, they put aside the time, they sacrifice the sleep, they really put in the effort to memorize Quran in this dunya. It's not the same as some person who passed away and he's just relaxing in his grave and say, okay, let me memorize Quran, I have so much time. I mean, it's not the same, right? It's not the same. Right? So of course not the same. So you can be reading Quran and doing prayer praise in the grave, but there's no reward. The reward doesn't count, because your own striving is only counted while you are in the dunya. Okay. Now, right. So much is all the proofs, right? That it does not. There's no text that actually disproves that the reward reaches. And there's no text. And they disprove that the reward reaches. It's by Allah's mercy and Allah's generosity. If He wants to have it reach, it's up to Him, Subhanahu wa Taala. Nobody can limit Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Sebab Alhamdulillah, I'm going to stop there for today. Inshallah, barakallahu fikum. We're going to continue again. We're going to continue our class again every day, inshallah. 7 a.m. every day, inshallah. For June itself, I'm doing this thing with the kids, 10 o'clock, inshallah. 10 to 10:30 only is 5 to 5:30 here. Because by the time, like 5:40, I have to leave my house. Right, so I have like 5 to 5:30 with the kids. So if you have kids, they can join. Adults, try not to join because you make my internet slow. So you can always see the YouTube if you really want to watch kids class. Like, but you cannot like make my internet slow if a lot of you join in. Okay, alhamdulillah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أن الله يرزقنا من أفعل وعمل خاص وسلم والدلالة على الهدى ويسر به قلب النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى والخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الفاتحة على رسول نافع وعمل خاص وعمل خاص مستعين بالله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الفاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك.